In 1999, you could buy a Honda S2000 for $28,000. Today, a clean example costs more than a new GR Supra. 240 horsepower from a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine, a 9,000 RPM redline, and only about 110,000 ever made. This car isn't just holding its value, it's becoming irreplaceable. And the reason traces back to a single engineering brief from 1995. Honda's 50th anniversary wasn't just a milestone on the calendar, it was a challenge to the company's own legacy. In 1995, engineers set out to create a Roadster that would embody everything Honda stood for. The Sports Study Model, or SSM, made its debut that year at the Tokyo Motor Show. Its long hood and rear-wheel drive proportions signaled a return to the spirit of the S500, S600, and S800 lightweight sports cars that had defined Honda in the 1960s. Shigeru Uehara, the chief engineer behind the NSX, took the lead. His team experimented with a 5-cylinder engine, but the final direction demanded something purer. A high-revving, naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that would become the heart of the S2000. Over 4 years, every detail was honed to showcase Honda's engineering identity. On April 15, 1999, the production S2000 was unveiled as the centerpiece of Honda's half-century celebration, a car designed not to follow trends, but to remind the world what Honda could achieve when it built for itself. The S2000's reputation rests on an engine that seemed to defy the rules for street cars at the turn of the millennium. The F20C, a 2.0-liter inline-4, delivered 240 horsepower at 8,300 revolutions per minute in US trim, an output of 120 horsepower per liter, unmatched by any other naturally aspirated 4-cylinder in mass production at the time. The redline soared to 9,000 revolutions per minute, a figure normally reserved for race cars and exotic supercars. This high-revving character wasn't just a party trick, it was built into the hardware. Forged pistons, rods, and a robust crankshaft allowed the engine to spin reliably at those dizzying speeds. The bore and stroke were perfectly square, 86 millimeters each, balancing piston speed and strength. Weighing just under 2,800 pounds, the S2000 put every bit of that power to work with an immediacy that modern turbo engines rarely match. The result was a driving experience that felt alive, raw, urgent, and mechanical, turning every straightaway into a stretch of racetrack and every on-ramp into an invitation to chase the red line. Honda didn't leave the S2000 formula untouched for long. In 2004, the Roadster evolved from the AP1 to the AP2, and with it came a new approach to everyday performance. The AP2 swapped the original F20C engine for the F22C1, a 2.2-liter 4-cylinder with a longer stroke. Peak horsepower stayed at 240 horsepower, but torque increased to 220 Newton-meters, delivered lower in the rev range. The redline dropped from 9,000 to 8,000 revolutions per minute, making the power band more accessible for street driving. Alongside the engine, Honda reworked the chassis. Wheel sizes grew from 16 to 17 inches, and the tires widened to improve grip. Suspension geometry changed, with adjustments to spring rates and anti-roll bars that aimed to smooth out the car's responses. These updates didn't erase the S2000's raw spirit, but they did make it more forgiving and usable for drivers who wanted performance without the edge. The AP1 and AP2 now stood as two sides of the same coin, one razor-sharp, the other more refined, both unmistakably S2000. Enthusiast circles still debate the S2000's handling, and no topic stirs more discussion than the so-called snap oversteer of the early 2000s AP1 models. Stories spread quickly in the early 2000s. A short wheelbase, high-strung power delivery, and the original Bridgestone S02 tires could combine to send the rear end sideways with little warning. Owners described sudden breakaway in corners, sometimes blaming the car, sometimes the driver. The S2KI forums became a kind of digital lab, with members dissecting suspension geometry, tire compounds, and alignment settings. Technical threads filled with camber charts and toe measurements, as drivers chased answers for the car's unpredictable moments. Honda's engineers took notice. For the AP2, they revised the rear suspension geometry, changed spring rates, and switched to wider 17-inch tires, all to tame the car's sharpest edges. Yet the reputation stuck. Even after the factory fixes, the myth of snap oversteer outlasted the problem itself, making the S2000 both a badge of honor and a cautionary tale for drivers who wanted the thrill and the risk of a true driver's car. Honda reserved its boldest moves for the S2000's most exclusive variants. In Japan, the Type S arrived as a sharpened limited-run model with only 699 units produced. It featured stiffer dampers, revised aerodynamics, and subtle interior upgrades, all aimed at drivers who wanted a track-focused experience without sacrificing daily comfort. Meanwhile, the United States market saw the arrival of the Club Racer, or CR, in 2008. This was Honda's answer to the purist enthusiast, a car stripped of excess, with the soft top replaced by a lightweight aluminum hardtop, a stiffer suspension, and a quicker steering rack. The CR's chassis was lighter and more rigid. Its aggressive front splitter and rear wing were not just for show. They delivered real aerodynamic benefit on track days. Only 699 Club Racers were built, making it the rarest S2000 sold in North America. Honda itself called the CR the closest thing to a factory race car you could buy with a license plate. For collectors and drivers alike, the Type S and CR stand at the top of the S2000 hierarchy. Their rarity and focus make it clear. Honda never intended these versions to be common, and their existence signals just how far the company was willing to go to satisfy the most demanding drivers. On August 19, 2009, the final Honda S2000 rolled off the assembly line, quietly closing the book on a decade of production. The decision did not come from a lack of enthusiasm or engineering failure. Instead, the financial crisis of 2008 had shaken the automotive world, hitting niche sports cars especially hard. Demand for low-volume, high-performance models collapsed as buyers turned cautious and manufacturers scrambled to cut costs. Honda, facing its own financial pressures, began to shift focus. The company prioritized hybrid technology and fuel-efficient vehicles, responding to changing regulations in a market that now favored practicality over pure driving pleasure. The S2000, with its high-revving engine and rear-wheel drive chassis, had always been a passion project rather than a profit center. Sales figures made the case clear. With just over 110,000 units built worldwide by the end of production, the S2000 never approached the mass-market success of models like the Civic or Accord. Honda's official statement pointed to simple economics. Sales no longer justified the costs of building such a specialized car. There was no replacement, no direct successor waiting in the wings. The end of production locked the S2000's supply, turning it from a living product line into a finite resource. Every remaining example became a piece of history, its rarity now defined by the moment Honda decided to stop building them. When the S2000 launched in the United States, its sticker price hovered around $28,000, a figure that put it within reach of everyday enthusiasts. For years after production ended, used examples followed the standard curve, settling into the $25,000 to $30,000 range. But by the late 2010s, that pattern broke. Auction sites began recording clean, low-mileage AP1s selling for $45,000, then $60,000, and soon after the rarest specimens were trading hands for six figures. A pristine original S2000 can now cost more than a brand new Toyota GR Supra or even a Porsche Boxster. The market isn't just rewarding the badge, it's rewarding untouched cars, low odometer readings, and complete factory documentation. Survivors with original paint and no modifications command the highest premiums, while tired or heavily altered examples lag behind. This is no temporary spike. Price guides and recent sales confirm the S2000 has crossed over from used car to blue-chip collectible, with value now tied directly to scarcity and condition. A modern S2000 would face a regulatory wall that its creators never imagined. Today's emissions standards demand low output, ultra-clean engines, leaving little room for a 9,000 RPM, naturally aspirated four-cylinder. Crash safety and pedestrian impact rules now require taller hoods, heavier structures, and more complex front ends, all of which would compromise the car's proportions and weight. Even Honda's own engineers, including the chief architect of the new Prelude, have said they would love to build another S2000, but the economics simply do not add up. The costs of certifying a low-volume, high-revving sports car are now prohibitive, and Honda has no plans for a direct replacement. The original S2000 formula belongs to a different era, one where regulations, costs, and market appetite aligned. That era is over. What remains is a closed chapter, and every clean S2000 left is a finite resource. This scarcity is why values keep rising. Today, the S2000's value signals a shift. Analog, high-revving purity has become a finite commodity. As automakers chase electrification and automation, cars like this remind us what is vanishing. The market is not just pricing nostalgia, it is measuring what cannot be engineered again. What is rare now only grows rarer.